freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Canadian Open. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg. Good to see you.
Rick, good to see you too, as always. The exciting day, getting ready for the RBC Canadian Open. It's been a great tournament the last couple of years, especially last year, and I'm looking forward to another rendition.
I remember hearing that they changed the logo to include the Nick Taylor silhouette, but I'm just seeing it for the first time right now, and I absolutely love it.
I have to check that out.
You'll see it when I share my screen and show you the scorecard. It's on the scorecard.
Okay. All right. So I'll reserve comments for then.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just 1 second. But we do have a little bit of history to update here on, because the golf course that we are going to play this year, Greg, is not the course that we played last year. It is not the course we played the year before that. In fact, Hamilton Golf and Country Club is a course that we have not seen for this event since 2019. And then prior to that, it was 2012. So there is not a lot of history and really no recent history to go off of. So I want to throw that out there because this is an event that they've been moving around the country, but we are going back to Hamilton this year.
Yes, and it makes sense why they would move it around the country. It's a big country. In fact, geographically, the second biggest country in the world, behind only Russia.
Whoa, Greg is doing his homework.
That did not come up in this for preparation for this event, but it just popped into my head. You never know what's going to come out. But 2019, Rory McIlroy won, and remember, he defended his title in 2022. So both 2020 and 2021 were canceled due to COVID. So Rory McIlroy is a past champion at Hamilton. You have Scott Piercy from 2012, and only one before that, 2006, Jim Furyk. So kind of going way back there for the third past champion here at Hamilton.
Well, now I'm down a rabbit hole. So Greg is correct. Canada, the second largest country in the world. I'm looking at total area in square miles, 3.8 million square miles. Russia, 6.6 million. Any guesses on what the third largest country in the world would be?
I believe it's China.
It is China. 3.7 million square mile. You want to keep going? The fourth largest?
Yeah, I believe that is India.
I'm sorry, Greg. Your run ends here. According to the website I found, Brazil is 5th, India is 7th. So we're missing 4 and 6 here.
Big countries.
Big ones.
The United States
is number 4.
Yes. Number 4.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the US and Canada, 2 of the 4 largest countries, are on the same continent.
Square mileage. What's 6?
That is the country that is its own continent.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. Australia.
That is right. Australia. We'll round out the top 8 with Argentina. So Russia, Canada, China, US, Brazil, Australia, India, Argentina.
Yep. Just picturing the game of Risk. I'm not sure if you ever played that, but start with Australia.
Start with Australia. All right. Well, here's that hard pivot over to Canada. Hamilton Golf and Country Club. Troy, if you want to share my screen, I've got the scorecard up here. And Greg, this is where, can I zoom in for you? There's the logo.
Oh, oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
He replaces the eye.
He replaces the eye with the putter toss. So very, very well done there. This is a par 70, 35, 35. There is one par 5 on the front. That is number 4. There is one par 5 on the back. That is number 17. There are a couple of longer par 3s. There is a, where is it? 5 could be gettable. 346-yard par 4, depending on wind and where they put the tees. And the other thing that I was thinking about here, Greg, is something that I completely forgot. I don't remember. But when you look at this scorecard, what do you see?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've had a couple weeks in a row with some pretty specific yardage range buckets. Like when we look at approach play, we've had a couple of outside of 200 yards, like long iron specialty type venues. Last week was kind of the opposite of that, a short iron specialty type venue. But when you look at this scorecard, you see a number of holes right around that 400-yard bucket, 360-yard par fours, which are some sort of wedge into the green. But then you also see a number of really long par threes, like number 6, 249 yards, number 13, 209 yards, 8, also 207 yards. That does give you, and 11 being a 500-yard par 4 would be the other one on that list, where it gives you this kind of every club in your bag when it comes to approach play. Some very scoreable, depending on what you hit off the tee. It'll be very short wedges or short irons. And then you have some forced long irons for everybody in the field. So it kind of becomes a test across the board when it comes to that approach play.
Yeah, agreed. Some like you said, some longer par 3s, some longer par 5s, some short par 4s, or excuse me, some longer par 4s, some shorter par 4s. So there is a pretty good range of distances here. The other thing that I noticed, and I'm trying to remember, and this is, I remember what I was going to say. This is a composite course. So they actually use 2 different courses, the West course and the South course, a little bit of both to get this 18 done. And the way that I remember it from 19 and the way that I was looking at the satellite imagery, that if you can carry whatever the last bunker is, which is usually like 310, and obviously it'll be tee and wind dependent and all that stuff, you can remove a lot of the trouble off the tee, like fairway bunkers and stuff, which I feel like that's how Rory dismantled this place, but I'm trying to rack my brain from 5 years ago.
Hey, it's kind of interesting, not just at Hamilton, but in past Canadian Opens, right? Dustin Johnson is a past champion as well. But then you also have the Nick Taylors and many of the players that have ended up on leaderboards inside the top 5 have been more accuracy specialists. Yet you see Rory McIlroy absolutely run away with it, shooting 61 in the final round and winning again in 2022. So that creates kind of an interesting dilemma. And it just points to one thing for me, Rick. Distance is always an advantage. But for the longest hitters in this field, you still have to be very precise. There is statistically a penalty for missing fairways. It can create some trouble on this kind of golf course. So accuracy over distance is one thing that will probably stand out in the model. But the other thing that's fascinating about this place is, and many of the bent grass courses that we're heading to throughout this summer, they have a tendency to turn it into a little bit of a putting contest. Old school golf course, classical kind of golf course. Typically don't see conditions like you saw at Colonial last week, where it creates just an absolute ball striker's test. Some short game and putting guys pop up on these leaderboards, even though approach play is still critically important.
I'm seeing 6 different men who won this event back to back. I think you can get 2 of them, Greg. You want to take a stab at it?
Okay, Rory.
7 different men. Yes, Rory's. So I think you might be able to get 3 of them. Yeah, I forgot. I just completely overlooked Rory.
Well, I know we don't have any Canadians, right? Because yet Nick Taylor was the first to do it in like 72 years or something.
Yeah.
So probably not another Canadian.
That's right.
The question is, did Tiger Woods win the Canadian Open in 99 or 01?
That's a good question.
I'm going to say yes.
He did not. There's one pretty recent. 16.
Furyk?
Okay, Furyk was the other one I thought you would get. That was 06, 07.
Yeah.
And there's actually one in the middle. So we've got 06, 07. We've got Rory in 19 and 22. And there was actually another one in 16 and 17.
Oh, in 16 and 17.
Yeah, this is low key. Like this is a tough one.
See, I was gonna guess VJ Singh,
No.
but that's not the right time frame.
It might be this guy's only 2 wins. He has 1 other win.
Wow. And you
I
thought I would get this?
I don't know. You're a smart guy. You know all this.
Oh man. I don't know.
Johnny Vegas went back to back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. That's a pull, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's funny. I saw Johnny Vegas win. I was writing up a little like last 5 note to myself, and Johnny Vegas was on there. I guess I needed to just go back a little bit farther and I would have had it.
Just 6. You got to go back 6. Then it's like 1950, 1951, Jim Ferrier. Then you get Sam Snead in 40 and 41. Leo Deigel in 1928 and 1929. James Douglas Edgar in 1919 and 1920. Yeah, how could we forget that one? I think I got them all.
Impressive.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while I'm over here just throwing out random names, we're actually going to name some relevant ones for this week. We are going to do that after a quick word from our partners.
The UEFA Champions League final. This is as big as it gets. This is the final round. The kings of the Champions League. They are Real Madrid. This is the battleground. Dortmund are into the Champions League final. I can't believe it. We can't believe it. Ain't gonna stop me now. This is the final round. All his dreams coming true.
Dortmund versus Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League final. Streaming live on Paramount+.
And we're back. This is the cheat sheet over at my website, rickrungood.com. And there are 4 golfers over $10,000. Greg, they are led by a $12,100 Rory McIlroy. Following at $10,500 is Sahith Theegala. $10,003 is Tommy Fleetwood. And Shane Lowry is $10,100. What do you make of the top of the board?
Oh, well, it's pretty good. It's hard to decipher. But I do think it's pretty good. Look, Rory, it's starting to seem, I've thought for a long time that the Masters was a big issue for Rory McIlroy. It's seeming more and more like majors are the issue for Rory McIlroy. That being said, he did still finish T12 at the PGA before back-to-back wins. It's clear that Rory's short iron play has absolutely improved. It's clear that his tee to green play is pretty darn good, right up there with the Rory McIlroy that you'd expect. So it's hard for me to go away from Rory in this range. That being said, it's not Scottie Scheffler. I do think there's a reason to pivot, if you will. I don't necessarily recommend it. Rory is my favorite in this range. But if you are going to pivot, it comes down to Sahith Theegala and Tommy Fleetwood. And I probably lean a little bit closer to Theegala. And the reason for Theegala is his ball striking's been great lately. But what I really like about him and what separates him from Tommy Fleetwood to me is the ability to go nuts with the putter.
Yes.
Right. He just has this upside that is 4.5 or more, 8, 10 strokes. He can fill it up on the greens. And this seems like an important kind of venue to have that capability. And I think, although Tommy's putting has been pretty good as well, I think Sahith just has a little more upside in that category.
I tend to agree with you. I get a little bit, and this is very anecdotal. I probably would have said the same thing about Xander Schauffele before 2 weeks ago. I get a little wishy-washy paying over $10,000 for Tommy Fleetwood because you probably need him to win. And you probably, or at the very least, be the best of the 10K guys. And he doesn't have an elite skill set. He's very good throughout the bag. And that just kind of worries me a little bit. So I think there is probably a bigger gap for my purposes between Sahith and Tommy. I think it's Rory stands alone, gap, Sahith, little gap, Tommy, Shane is kind of the way that I view this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Tommy's just been so good. But you're right. Look, we're up at the top of the mountain here, and conditions are harsh. You got to make decisions among the best in the field. Do you want the guy that's going to win, or the most likely to give you a really good chance? And for Tommy Fleetwood, a top 10 it feels like it's a great week, and you'd expect it, but you'd be patting him on the back with a top 10. That's not the same for Rory.
Agreed. Here's the Shane Lowry stat profile, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So we've got his last 5 measured events. It doesn't include a T29 in Singapore, and it does not include his team win with Rory McIlroy at the Zurich Classic. But he was a loser, and a big one with the putter. He lost 1 at Sawgrass, 7 each at Augusta National in Harbortown. He punts away nearly 6 strokes at Quail Hollow, and then he has the best putting week of his career. And I assume he will be coming back down to earth. He's not going to gain 9.5 strokes putting again, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, click on PGA Championship. Now, if you look at, so a lot of this comes from one round. I guess he did putt pretty well in round 2.
Yeah, well, two-thirds of it come from round 3 alone. But he did get 3 strokes putting in round 2 as well.
Yeah, and Sunday's a different ball game. So, all right, you know what? That's better than I thought. I remembered the Saturday round, obviously, and thought a lot of that came from Saturday. It's better than I thought in the other 3 rounds, but I do not trust it. Not yet. And I think he can putt better. He's not going to putt, which is fine. But there's just such a risk with the ability that he's shown to shoot himself out of the tournament with just the putter.
Yeah. And I like Tommy. I like Shane. I think I love Sahith, and I think I really love Rory. That's
I tend to be right there with you. Right there with you.
The 9K range. Small and interesting. Alex Noren, Cameron Young, Corey Connors, our first Canadian sighting, Sam Burns, Maverick McNeely, Adam Scott. That's it. Handful of these guys played. Actually, did any of them play last? Oh, McNeely played last week. Adam Scott played last week, and that's it. The others we haven't seen since the PGA Championship. Most of them did not play here in 2019. Just didn't play the event. So what do we do here in this range?
Well, I got a quick question for you. Is Corey Connors going to suck up ownership being a Canadian at the Canadian Open?
Tell you what, Greg, I don't know that yet, but I was already looking at the one and done. It's not even the projected ownership. It's off his football pool. They just show you like the site-wide selections. So like it's what people have already submitted. There are 3 Canadians inside the top 8. Corey Connors is like the 3rd highest selected one. Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin, which is like, it's going to be all 3 of their like most popular weeks. So I am using that to say, yes, I think he's going to be pretty popular.
Okay. So for that reason, I am happy to stay away. I think he's been hitting the ball great. He's been playing fine. But I think we have better options. I would much rather, for instance, play Alex Noren, who's at 9,900, has been hitting the ball kind of like Corey Connors, and I think has a much higher potential upside on and around the greens. He has been playing great golf consistently.
This goes back to March.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been he has not finished outside the top 25 since Phoenix, which was early February. He, in that stretch, has a couple of top 10s, a couple of top 15s. He rarely loses anywhere in the bag. It is, I'm not sure this is the greatest course for him, but he has been phenomenal.
Well, I think this course is benign enough.
Okay.
And I don't mean benign like it's flat and boring. I don't think it asks for a specific skill enough to rule anybody out, especially when they're playing like this. I think good golf here can get rewarded no matter how you do it. And I'm quite happy to take the risk and pay that price tag for Alex Noren based on what he's shown us, especially if there's a lot of hype that goes to Corey Connors because he's Canadian. That, in theory, takes some away from Noren.
The three that I'm focused on here are Noren, Cam Young, and Maverick McNeely. Here's McNeely. It is similar to, it's almost, I don't want to say identical, but a very similar timeline to Alex Noren. Basically started playing well at Phoenix and hasn't really stopped playing well since then. And he hasn't been as well-rounded as Noren is, but finished T17 last week. He had a top 25 at the PGA Championship. The only missed cut in there was the Zurich, which is a team event. I am loving a healthy McNeely again.
He's on my list as well. He was second behind Noren. And part of the reason, Rick, is his pedigree is a putter, right? Like that's how he has made his hay
For sure.
in his career. And he's not doing that now. He's hitting the ball really well and just hasn't quite found it on the greens. And this is something we noticed with Keegan Bradley heading into last week. Hitting it fine. The results haven't come yet because he hasn't really made a whole lot of putts yet. Doesn't mean he's putting poorly. We just haven't seen that. He's putting well enough for me to believe that it's coming. Everything's fine on the green. So I love McNeely as well.
Okay, so I'm in on McNeely, I'm in on Noren, I'm in on Cam Young. That's basically half this range, or 3 out of 7.
Yeah.
No, 3 out of 6. That is half this range. Anybody else that we need to talk about?
Yeah, I am very curious about Adam Scott. I'm just wondering if there's enough upside. I love what he's done. I love what he's done off the tee, especially. I think his putting pedigree over the last couple of seasons has been enough to warrant a look. He hasn't really played a Canadian Open since like 2003. It's been a long time since he's played the Canadian Open. So the question is there enough? Does Adam Scott's good golf warrant this kind of price tag?
Oh, boy. I'm stumped. I'll tell you what, it is definitely better than I thought when I clicked it.
It's really good.
I was expecting to see, because I knew how hot he was, like as the calendar turned into 2024, and I played him a lot leading up to the Masters, and I felt like he cooled off, and I guess he kind of did, but not really. But that's three top 30s in his last 4. The miscut was the PGA Championship, which whatever. And this, I don't know the strength of field numbers yet, but this is going to be weaker than, Colonial had Scotty, Morikawa, Homa. This is going to be pretty weak, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely weaker than Colonial. And next week you got Memorial, and then you have US Open.
And then Travelers.
And then Travelers. So it's a big, you couldn't really do Charles Schwab and this.
Right.
Right. You kind of had to choose one, if any. And Adam Scott's playing both. So that'll be very interesting. But I think his game looks like it's in really good form. I just wonder and question, when we look at some of these guys in the 8K range, I think there's some real high upside. What is it with Adam Scott? Could he win?
Could he win? That's the $1 million question. Okay, well, I want to get to those guys in the 8K range, and then we're going to go even deeper. There is a 5K range again this week, even though we don't have a player in the $13,000 range, so kind of an interesting way that we can build lineups. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
And we're back. Greg, let me just continue with this useless trivia thing that I'm on right now.
All right.
Do you know what year the Canadian Open first started? The first year of the Canadian Open.
No.
Do you want to take a guess? Or would you like to?
1908.
Wow. Pretty good guess. 1904.
Huh. Okay.
That's the margin of error. I'll give you that one.
Yeah. I didn't want to guess because I was afraid of embarrassing myself.
No, you did much better.
Okay.
The 1904 Canadian Open was won by Jack Oakey or Oak, O-K-E.
All right.
He was 16 over, Greg.
Wow.
16 over at Royal Montreal, which we'll see for the President's Cup this year. And the winner's share, the winner's take was $60.
Congratulations.
It's big money.
But we speak his name forever.
We do.
Rick, will there be a day when they say, when Scotty Scheffler won the FedEx Cup in 2024, he only won $30 million.
And people are going to laugh and laugh and laugh. Yeah. They're going to say that currency doesn't even exist anymore.
What is $1?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's absolutely going to happen. The 8K range, also fairly small. Aaron Rai, Keith Mitchell, Tom Kim, Adam Hadwin, Mackenzie Hughes, a couple of Canadians right there in the middle. Then we round out the bottom with Eric Van Rooyen, Akshay Bhatia, and our defending champion, the logo, Nick Taylor. What do you want to do, Greg?
Fascinating range. Just fascinating. So, one, I do like, let's just start with the popular guy, who I think Mackenzie Hughes would be my guess.
Okay.
I genuinely like Mackenzie Hughes. I am a huge fan of what he's done on the greens. I know that his ball striking numbers haven't been great, which I'd like to see a little better approach play. But the putter has been so red hot, and we've seen some really good results, like the tied third at the Valspar, the tied sixth at the Wells Fargo. He does this despite basically losing strokes ball striking. And I think on a golf course like this, he can hit it a little. I think he can hit it a little better. You're not talking about the difficulty level of a major championship or a Wells Fargo, or a Houston Open for that matter. So this will probably be a little more receptive with the clubs coming into these greens. So I'm curious about Mackenzie Hughes.
Finished T14 here in 2019, and outside of the miscut at the PGA Championship has been on a pretty decent run. 5 good finishes in a row here on the cheat sheet, culminating with that T6 at the Wells Fargo Championship. There is one guy in this range that I'm in on. There's one I want to be in on, and then I'm not sure how I feel about the rest of it. So I'll just divulge all of that. I'm not a big Keith Mitchell guy, but I see it for this week. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just, drives it really well. I do worry about the putter, but I will say it's getting better. That's a very, very low bar. I would like him to be around a 0 as opposed to a -3, -4, -5 guy, which is certainly possible. And he just knocks the cover off the ball. And I think that getting him in a little bit of a weaker field, if there is an advantage to be in a little bit longer off the tee, which is still very much yet to be determined, I don't mind that one single bit. And then the other one, Greg, that I want to like is Tom Kim. And
yes.
I throw him in the category of Colin Morikawa and these really difficult guys to figure out. But when I see a golfer whose stat profile is changing, whether it's for the good or for the bad, I take notice. And he's starting to drive it a little bit better. I still need to see those better approach numbers, but the putter's been good for 4 or 5 weeks now. I'm seeing at least a little bit of a trend for Tom Kim.
Yeah, and if you think accuracy is important here, he certainly fits that mold. Maybe you have. Yeah, I wrote down Tom Kim on my list as well with a question mark next to it because I, like you, want to like this. It feels right. And last thing on Keith Mitchell, he's the discount Corey Connors.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right. They're like the same profile, which is fascinating.
Yeah. And I'm hoping. So Keith is actually very popular in fantasy corners, but this week with like the Canadian angle, the way this 8K range is shaping up, I don't tell you what, I think a lot of people end up kind of staying away from this 8K range. It's awkward.
I got another one I like.
Okay.
I had one other name on my list. Eric Van Rooyen.
Yeah. So T20 here in 19, and he's been putting some good results together. And I'm showing his profile right now, Greg.
Yes. So you've seen, he played really well in Mexico and the Cognizant Classic, and even at the API, he had a T8, tied second, and a T25. A couple missed cuts, 2 missed cuts in a row, and since then you have a T55 at the Masters, a T33 at the RBC Heritage, T4 in Myrtle Beach, T53 at the PGA, and I just feel like some of these numbers are like the Masters and the PGA, they don't sound great, but you're talking about major championship golf, and we're not talking about that this week. And I feel like his numbers, there's been a strength in the approach play. There's been a strength in the putting. The driving seems to be turning a corner in the right direction. I think this could be a great week for EVR.
I'm not going to argue with that. And I like the upside, and he's kind of beaten up, like, T8 in Mexico, weaker field. The T4 at Myrtle Beach, weaker field. T2 at Cognizant, that was a weaker field, right? So it's just like, yeah, okay, go beat up on some of these guys, flash that upside, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. Pick on someone your own size.
Yeah. Pick on somebody with their own mustache. something like that. Anybody else? I will just say this. It's disappointing that Nick Taylor is slumping right now, because I would love to have him playing great golf leading into this event, but he has really just struggled throughout the back.
Yeah. It hasn't been great with his iron play, which kind of was a staple earlier in the year when he was playing great.
Yeah.
But you never know. Maybe the at-home maple syrup gets things going in the right direction again. I do think he is extremely talented, but I'm probably staying away.
Yeah, tough. Okay, well, we'll continue here. Let's go down to the 7K range. So this will get you a lot of different names. Hubbard, Davis Thompson, Daniel Berger at the top. The middle of this range is Ben Griffin, Kevin Yu, Doug Gim. The bottom of this range is Robert McIntyre, Rio Hisatsune, and Thorbjorn Olesen. So where do we allocate our funds here, Greg?
I got a couple names. I'll read off I'll just read off a few.
Okay.
I like Hubbard. I like Davis Thompson. I like Taylor Pendrith.
Okay, stop there. I'm basically in on all those guys with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Davis Thompson, just, pull my string, and I'll same thing I've said about Davis Thompson for the last 10 weeks. He's trending in the right direction.
Yes.
Hubbard, I got eyes on at the PGA Championship. I was pretty impressed. Taylor Pendrith,
yes,
is the best Canadian in this field.
Yes.
He is 7-1 to be top Canadian. Okay. Which is outrageous. He missed the cut at the PGA Championship in the most, to use a word that you used, benign way. Like no sirens blaring, no red flags, nothing. He missed the cut on the number. I don't care. Before that, T10 at Wells Fargo. He won the CJ Cup. He won at Byron Nelson, 11th in Punta Cana, and an 11th at Zurich, which I'll even take that one away. So we're talking about 3 top 11 finishes in a row with a win and a missed cut on the number at home on a golf course that might allow you to dismantle it with the driver. If not, he's still very good.
Yeah, he's been putting great. I mean, he's had to lean on the putter for this whole year because of his shoulder.
Yes.
The shoulder started to heal. Now what you're seeing is a President's Cup type talent,
yes,
which means, top 50 in the world type talent with the $7,600 price tag on it.
I have already bet him to be the top Canadian at 7-1. Like I just could not believe it.
Yeah, I have a note on that to be top. I hadn't looked at the odds yet, but I was like, Pendrith top Canadian, is that best bet material? Is that finish position material? Can I do that? I hadn't put that much thought into it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
So in a DFS lineup, yeah.
So I'm with you on those three, and big with you on Pendrith.
Okay, good. So those make a lot of sense. Now I got a couple more. These are more question marks.
Okay.
I have a question mark next to all three. And then that's all I got in the 7K. Ben Griffin, question mark. Doug Gim, question mark. Robert McIntyre, question mark.
Robert McIntyre, of those names, I stared at McIntyre's profile for a long time this morning. And I was just kind of looking at like, he's like kind of long enough. He drives it well. He's been putting well. If I can just assume he's not going to lose 4.5 strokes ball striking, which I don't know if that's a safe assumption or not. That's what he did to Charles Schwab, but he'd been great before that. There's a huge range of outcomes with McIntyre. Is kind of where I settled.
I don't know if I've ever played him. I've never really been sold, but always thought he was coming. And I'm kind of wondering now with the T8 at the Zurich, T13 in Myrtle Beach, T8 at the PGA, and across the board, it's starting to look a little better. Even though in Houston, he lost 4.5 strokes ball striking. At the Charles Schwab, he lost 4.5 strokes ball striking. It feels like it's coming to me for some reason. So maybe that's one of those, what do they say in the industry, Rick? Guy I'm playing that you shouldn't.
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay. That's a good way.
Yeah, maybe that's Robert McIntyre for me.
Let's continue this conversation. Let's go down to the sixes.
Yeah.
And this starts with Luke List, Sam Stevens, and the fall of Eric Cole, who is $6,800. Same price as Matt Kuchar. No offense to Matt Kuchar. The middle of this range, Andrew Novak, Ben Silverman, Joseph Bramlett, Mac Meisner. Spoiler alert. The bottom of this range will get you Martin Laird, Parker Cootie, and Garrick Higo. What do you want to do?
Well, Mac Meisner,
yeah,
right, who you just mentioned. You probably haven't heard this name before if you're listening, but it's one to start paying attention to because this profile is looking real good.
So I started following him more closely, I believe, after this Texas Open T10. And for whatever reason, I had it in my head that he had been bouncing back and forth between the Korn Ferry Tour. And that's not true. He's been playing full-time on the PGA Tour all year long. And he hasn't played every start or whatever. I don't know what his priority rank is. But he got off to a very slow start, as a lot of rookies do. He missed his first 3 cuts, started to get more consistent, had his high water mark, which was that T10 at Texas that I was referring to. Then he goes out and finishes 13th at the Myrtle Beach Classic, 5th at the Charles Schwab. The metrics are going in the right direction. You can see a guy maturing via his results.
Yes. And you start to see it in every area too. Like every area of his game has the potential to maybe driver's the weakest link for him. And he still gained strokes off the tee in 3 out of his last 4.
Yeah.
It's, he's got serious potential all through the bag, which is pretty cool. And at 6,500, it's kind of worth it.
He closed as well. So Myrtle Beach, he closed gaining 4.5 strokes on Sunday. Last week, 3.5 on Saturday, 4 on Sunday. I love a good closer. Mac the closer Meisner.
Big fan. So he's definitely on my list. A little more expensive. Same price. Same price. What do you think about Ben Silverman?
Honestly, I'm not sure I have
results. Okay, so we've had a couple of good results lately. Well, there were 3 missed cuts, T16 in Myrtle Beach, T32 at the Charles Schwab. The putter has been very good the last 2 weeks, which normally I stay away from. But here at the Canadian Open, it seems like the putter becomes very important. So, and I'm looking at this profile now. He's a Canadian player,
Yes.
but I do think he's not a well-known Canadian where, we think, oh, Corey Connors, Canadian Open, got to play him. So I don't think you're going to deal with any Canadian bias in ownership. So, I'm interested in Ben Silverman. Who else is very interesting, who you've heard his name many times before, but not in a while, is Patton Kizzire.
Okay. Yeah,
Patton Kizzire is making a comeback. He missed to start he finished T13 in Hawaii. I said, oh, there's Patton Kizzire. Maybe we're going to see a lot of him this year.
He's going to have a great year.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cuts in a row before a WD at the Club Car Championship on the Corn Ferry Tour.
Yeah.
Since then, a couple weeks later, T23 at Corrales Punta Cana, T28 at the Zurich Classic, T24 at the CJ Cup, T10 in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. I need to know what he did in these 2 weeks. What did you learn, Patton? I'm dying to know.
I don't think I need to know. Maybe it was just good old-fashioned R&R. Because look, Patton Kizzire, if you look back at what he's done, everything was bad.
Yeah.
I don't look at his profile and say, oh, well, the guy's got the yips. Did you solve the yips? He can't hit a fairway. Did you get a new driver? Right. This was just bad golf. And now it's not. So at 6,300, sign me up.
Okay. That's pretty good. He showed up on a couple of the models that I ran as well. I thought there was one more guy that I had.
Zach Johnson.
No, I don't play that game.
Matt Kuchar.
No, I don't play that game either. Maybe he was in the 5K.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's keep rolling next. Maybe he was in the 5K range. I can't remember who it was. Where's Patrick Fishburne? That's who I'm thinking of. Where is he at? Oh, here he is. He's 5,700. Okay. So that's
I saw him.
All right. So 5K range is Brandon Wu, Carson Young, Chandler Phillips, bunch of other guys at the top of this 5K range. You get Pearson Coody, who is the one that finished 5th last week, who is cheaper than his brother Parker, and Robbie Shelton. Both those guys had top 10s. They're both 5,700. 5,500, that's your Hayden Buckley, who had a top 5 last week. And the bottom of this range, the min-priced golfers, a couple guys I had to add to my database, Greg. So this is the first time they've appeared in any of the tours that I have. Cam Kellett and Justin Matthews. I believe they're Canadian qualifiers. They're down there at the bottom, along with Mike Weir, who is also 5,000.
And the President's Cup captain this year.
That's right.
I'm not going that low, but I do think there are a couple names in this range that are very playable.
Agreed.
That could be in the 6K range. It would be fine. So a couple that you can definitely play that I'm not crazy about, but I think they're underpriced. David Skins and maybe Troy Merritt's not underpriced. But I think you can play him, and I'd be fine with it. Then there are 3 that I kind of like. And that would be Kelly Craft, Robbie Shelton, and Henrik Norlander. I genuinely like all of those.
Kelly Craft had been on a ball striking run, and I guess he still is, just absolutely flushing it.
It has not stopped.
He just doesn't play a lot. He must be like last on the priority list.
So this is the same thing that Kelly Craft got hurt.
Okay.
Right. He was it?
Is he playing on? Oh, that's right. I remember this.
Yeah, he hurt his hip or something. and just came back for the Zurich Classic. What is Kelly Craft priced at as I bring him up?
Surgery on his left hip, it looks like.
Yes.
$5,700.
Okay. All right. I'm a little below him. Yeah. But this basically hasn't stopped. I mean, he missed the cut in Myrtle Beach, had a pretty bad short game, but like we were on him at the CJ Cup and he delivered. Right. Came home, brought home the goods with a T13. I think you can go back to him. I think he's underpriced.
He's only played. So yeah, I guess that makes sense that it's injury related because he's only played 4 times this year, but all of them are since March 10th. Here's Robbie Shelton, who looked like a star last week in Fort Worth, finished T9 there, game throughout the bag, and then had a top 25 at the Myrtle Beach Classic. And then here's Henrik Norlander, which I admit, Greg, was not a name I was expecting to hear today.
Yes. And this is the thing about him. It's similar. Now, where is he? I'm skipping his name, but I need to look.
5,600.
Okay. 5,600, Henrik Norlander. This is what I find fascinating about him. He, like Kelly Craft, has not played a lot. Unlike Kelly Craft, not because of injury. This is because of his priority ranking. So he, I believe this was at the Zurich Classic, was asked about that. Like, and he was kind of fine with it, but just said, when I play, I have to be more ready. You know, and instead of just going week to week to week, I prepare and then I play. I prepare and then I play. And I'm happy with it. It works. Obviously, I'd like to play more, but I'm content. And so I started looking at it like, okay, that sounds good, but is it a good thing? He's got a top 20 finish, Rick, in half of his events.
Yeah, it is. It might actually be working for him.
Right? It kind of is. At first, I was like, oh, all right, this is just me. You know, maybe you're just feeling good, but it's not showing it. This is really good. T20 in Myrtle Beach, T19 at the Zurich Classic, T15 at the Puerto Rico Open, T13 at the Mexico Open. Even on the Corn Ferry Tour, before that, Austria Golf Open Championship, another T20. It's fine in every area. And at 5,600, it's 50-50 on a top 20 or not.
I like that. I'll take that. Okay, let me throw out a couple of names here. Mentioned Patrick Fishburne. He's 5,700. He's got my attention. Alistair Doherty finished runner-up in Myrtle Beach and then played well at a Corn Ferry Tour event. He's been playing mostly a Corn Ferry Tour schedule, but he's a pretty darn good player. And then I am like I'm a believer in Hayden Buckley. But unfortunately, I was like 0 for 19 before last week. So now I don't know if I'm chasing or not. And then the other one would be Trace Crow, who is long and straight and hits a lot of greens, which is something that we don't get from a lot of people in this range. Yeah,
Trace Crow. Back, what was that, around like the Farmers? He played really well.
I had a T25 to Farmers.
Yeah. All right. I think he was on the weekend coverage, and I was watching him somewhere on the West Coast, and I was really impressed. So I'm fine with Trace Crow. Maybe it was Phoenix.
There's Wilson Furr. Remember, he popped up on that collegiate thing the other day.
Yes. I haven't seen Wilson Furr in person though. Just
I could not pick him out of
leaderboards.
I could not pick him out of a crowd of him and Rory McIlroy. I could not pick him out of.
Yeah. But I think they're good names. I think they're good. Oh, there he is.
There's Wilson.
Is that Rory?
Is that Rory? Oh, no, it's William Furr.
So look, I wouldn't sleep on the 5K range, at least the top half of it. I think there's some playable options.
Well, the actual interesting thing is, so to kind of loop this back to something I was getting at a little bit earlier, there is not a Scotty at 13,300. So if you played Rory and took a couple of those guys or a guy in the 5K range that could conceivably be in the 6K range, you still have a lot of flexibility. If you're starting below Rory and you play a guy in the 5K range, which is not all that bad, you're going to be able to get a lot of different guys in your lineups.
Yeah.
We're getting the bottom salaries without the top salaries.
It gives you options. But like we talk about this all the time, it's arbitrary. The pricing is arbitrary. It's the same for everybody. And there's just simply a salary cap. So you still got to pick the right names. I'm very much in favor of giving you the flexibility. I think it helps. It makes it a lot more fun.
I agree. Anything else, Greg? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we're going to start a sprint here of some really big time events. And we're going to go to Canada, which is an event that's getting better and better every single year. I'm excited for it. But anything that we did not cover that we should have? I'm
thrilled. The one thing is just simply Memorial Day. Well, yes. It's a great day for a barbecue, great day to take off and enjoy with your friends and family, as you should. Just important to remember what it's all about, and why we have the freedom of this day off. So just remember, as you're enjoying your cold one, enjoying your hot dog, remember what we're celebrating for, and you'll be in a good place.
Very well said. That is Greg DuCharme. You can find him on Twitter at @TheRealGFD. I want to thank producer Troy, who does all the hard work behind the scenes. And then you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.